there he is. All of a sudden I was in a panic about which corner I was going to see the thumbs up in. Good evening. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, notice is hereby given that the Select Board is meeting tonight, Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 at 6 p.m.-ish via Zoom. The meeting of this board is physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation due to the coronavirus. Additional public access to this meeting shall be done via Zoom online video conferencing, as is always the case. It is recorded and it is also available via other medium as well. This evening we are going to be, because we are reaching you via Zoom, we will have certain rules in effect, including roll call votes, which I am confident I will forget a time or two, and somebody will remind me, but in each instance that will require each of us to say our name, and then whether or not we vote yay, nay, or an abstention. Initially, as is posted, we have several executive sessions, and my question for minds greater than mine own is, do I read each now, the A, B, and C reasons for entering into executive session prior to voting to go into executive session, or vote to go into executive session on A and then come out, and then B and then come out? I prefer the former, but if somebody has a preference regarding letting the folks at home who haven't read it in the statement know as to why we're going into executive session, I'm happy to hear it.
I think you can read the first one, because the first one says that you will return to open session at the conclusion of the third executive session. So that gives people notice that you will be coming back into open session. Right. And then that will end the way we posted the agenda. That would be at 7 o'clock for the public hearing for Camsha coatings.
And so I don't need to formally read out loud the reason why we're having the second and third executive session.
Correct. It's correct.
It's already written. Okay. Outstanding. All right. So prior to the roll call vote, essentially we'll be leaving to go into executive session under Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection A3, to discuss collective bargaining, with the Norfolk Municipal Clerical employees represented by Local 301, AFL, CIO, CLC, insofar as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position on that public body. And we will return to public meeting when these executive sessions are finished. Good. Now, with that said, do I have, I would like to hear a vote in order to enter executive session, which will require us to leave this Zoom meeting and then go into a different Zoom meeting, and then we'll come back to this Zoom meeting at or around 7 p.m. To resume the public. But do I have a vote? A motion, forgive me.
So I move that the board enter into executive session under MGL Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, to discuss collective bargaining with the Norfolk Municipal Clerical employees represented by Local 301 AFL-CIO CLC, insofar as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the public body, and invite Scott Bragdon, Blythe Robinson, and Amanda Johans to participate. The board will return to open session at the conclusion of the third executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote. All those in favor? Carolyn Van Tine, aye.
Anita Mecklenburger, aye.
Kevin Calcutt, aye.
All right, now I'm clearing out here.
One friendly amendment that you would, as the chair, you'd want to make the statement that the also on your own, that the public meeting would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, which is in the script for the executive sessions.
All right. Oh, I thought that I had read that. Insofar as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position as well as the litigation position. All right. That's
Thank
the piece that I looked right at. Thank you. All right. So with that said, leaving now.
Amanda, can you just make me host so we can keep the call going?
I did.
Oh,
Did you not see that?
I didn't realize. Okay.
That's okay. Sorry. Okay, so Andrew, you're good for now with this, right?
Yes, I believe so.
The word
Okay.
litigation So Blythe, do I need to wait for the thumbs up in the corner again, or are we? There's the thumbs up. Andrew, God bless you. Saving my bacon yet again. So I have too much paper on my desk. It's somewhat like a goat exploded, but here we are back in open session. I'm sure there's something more formal than here we are back in open session. And when I find it, I will say it, but nevertheless, there it is. Now that we're in open session, having left closed or executive session, Black, would you like to take us through tonight's agenda and let me know what
So we're starting with a public hearing for a application from Camsha Coating Systems for a flammable liquids license at 360 Main Street, followed by public comment. The action items are to consider a donation of a musical instrument for Town Hill by Tom and Lori Antonellis, to consider approval of the Camsha Coating Systems application for the license at 360 Main Street, to consider ratification of a successor collective bargaining agreement for the Norfolk Clerical Municipal Clerical Union employees, to then consider approval of contract amendments for design to replace the existing fire station. There are two of those, one with the owner's project manager and one with the architectural firm. Discussion items are to hear a presentation from Public Works on the town's MS4 stormwater permit, to review second quarter financial reports for the town overall and then transfer station, with town administrator updates, a discussion to the board's approach to filling the town administrator opening, approval of 4 warrants, and there are no minutes for approval tonight.
Thank you very much. And so I guess that brings us to public comments coming after the public hearing. So public hearing first. What?
So I just recommend somebody needs to read the public hearing notice into the record, please.
I've got it queued up. Notice is hereby given in accordance with MGL Chapter 148 that the Select Board, Licensing Board for the Town of Norfolk, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Regarding the license application for the storage of flammable and combustible liquids, flammable gases and solids, and LP gas for property located at 360 Main Street in Norfolk, Massachusetts. The meeting will also be conducted on Zoom online video conferencing remote access platform. The information is listed below. The applicant, Camsha Coating Systems Incorporated of 364 Main Street, Norfolk, Massachusetts, is proposing to store Class 1B, IB, IC, II, and is that numbers or letters? I can't tell.
Letters.
Those are letters.
Thank you. And IIIA flammable liquids with a maximum quantity of 55,000 gallons in aggregate, flammable solids with a maximum quantity of 2,000 pounds in aggregate, and LP gas with a maximum quantity of 3,000 gallons in aggregate, stored in approved underground containers.
So now that he's read do we have to have a motion to open, or it's open now that he's read the notice?
It's open.
Because I know that we have a motion to close it, so.
Correct.
So.
I'm sorry. So as background, as you know, Camsha is expanding in Norfolk. They're in process of constructing their new building next door to their existing building, and they will need to be utilizing propane and all of the materials that are flammable in that new location. And as a result, because it's a separate street address, need a permit for that address, and they will continue to keep the permit they have for their existing address. There's a copy of the state law on this topic, Chapter 148, Section 13 is in your package for background. They have appropriately applied for the license from the town. It has been reviewed by by Chief Kinney, who's joining you for any questions that you have. Mr. Meisner from Camsha is here for any questions that you have as well. And I believe there's also information in your packet from the planning board on this topic, as well as background. So We believe everything is in order, but we want to, obviously, we're opening a hearing for any abutters who have concerns, any questions that the board has before possibly taking up a vote on it a little bit later.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Blake. Before opening it for the public, I want to ask a couple quick questions and open it to the board. And the only question that I have, I understand that it's essentially, or I guess I'm going to ask, I'm not sure who can answer this, but I understand that there is an existing flammable liquids license at their current location. Is the license that they have currently, is the new one essentially the same? Will it be the same amount being stored there?
I think that questions are best answered by either Mr. Meisner or Chief Kinney, who've been discussing the specifics.
So I have one for the chief, so I'll ask Mr. Meisner on this one, so I'll divide and conquer. Mr. Meisner, I think you're muted.
Hi, how are you tonight?
So I just was wondering, in terms of scale, is it essentially around the same amount that would be utilized at the new location?
Yeah, yes, it is. It's almost a duplicate of what we currently have for a permit at this point.
And how long have you had the current permit?
A long time. We've been in business there since the 70s. So at the point, I'm not sure the date of the first permit that was there.
That's a long time was plenty.
Yeah.
That's all I. And have there been any issues with the storage of flammable liquids under the existing permit?
No. And we've been in community, we work with the fire department every year. All right. And, they have to come out and they have to renew the permits. So they come out and they inspect our building and the locations. And actually they do some training at our facility as well. So, we keep close communications with the fire department so that everybody's aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Outstanding. Thank you. And then, Chief, the only question that I have for you is, what are your thoughts? I understand everyone's signing off on it, but is there anything that you could add for anybody who might be concerned when they see the words flammable and liquid together in a sentence?
I can just add that this has been a very good public-private partnership that we have with Camsha, at least in my tenure here with the Norfolk Fire Department. They allow us access to their facility regularly. We have access to their records, their safety records, their inspection records, from the things they do internally, as well as the things that we go on site to perform. They have been more than accommodating in even trying to assist us as a department to address water supply needs that are in that area of town. And even with this new site, allowing us to have access to basically 250,000 gallons of water that they will have on site in a water tower that we'll be able to use in the event of a fire event in that area of town. That being said, on the other side of this, we've worked very closely with their fire protection engineer, also with Mr. Meisner and the management and ownership there. Again, been very cooperative. I think it's been the better part of pretty much since I started as the fire chief there. I've been reviewing and looking at plans and having meetings, making sure that everything is done and all the mitigation strategies and containment strategies and everything is implemented and used to limit the impact of any type of accident. This new facility will be state of the art. There's containment and spill mitigation built into the facility, as well as various types of monitoring and alarm systems to give early notification. There's even a state-of-the-art drainage system that would, in the event of a spill or leak, they would be able to reclaim or prevent any of the spilled material from entering into the environment. They have really done a very good job at the design and, even the training side for this facility. All their employees going through HAZSWAPER training understanding their safety protocols, what they need to do in the case of an emergency, in the case of a spill or an accident. So they've done an impeccable job. And again, been very open and very transparent in this process, as well as what they do with their current facility and the new facility. And, this new facility will be an enhancement and be an even safer facility than the current one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So that actually does it for me for questions. Anita?
It kind of does it for me too, because I was going to ask the chief to help me understand in layman's terms, what were the criteria you used to come to that decision of making the recommendation, but I think you've really thoroughly covered that. So thank you.
Kevin?
All questions addressed. Thank you.
So now I think because it's a public hearing and there's going to be neighbors interested potentially with questions and comments, would open it to them. But because my Zoom screen is like 1 million people or 28, but feels like 1 million given what we usually have for an audience, I'm going to rely on the select board Zoo account manager, Amanda, to let me know if anybody has questions or comments and that has their hand raised, and sort of deal with folks in the order that they pop up their little yellow hand in the corner if in fact anybody does have any questions or comments. Does that sound good?
Yes, there is currently no questions or comments.
Well, it's awesome, but also, okay, I'll give it a minute if there is there anything, Blythe, assuming that there aren't any questions or comments, what happens next?
So the board can choose to vote to close the public hearing if you've heard all you need to hear and all the comments that you wanted to take. And then we put it on for action a little bit later in the meeting. It's not first because there was something more a pressing timing issue for the folks who are listed after this, have their item come up, and then you can vote on this.
All right. Any small yellow hands waving in the corners, Amanda? All right. Well, in that case, I have heard all I need to hear, having heard from Mr. Meisner and Chief Kenny. So unless either Kevin or Anita need anything more, I would entertain a motion.
Well, I'm not finding a script for one, mainly because I have thoroughly. Okay, go for it, Anita.
There's a lot of paper.
I move that the board close the public hearing for Camsha coating system on the application for a flammable liquids license at 360 Main Street.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. All those in favor say aye. Carolyn Van Tine, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
Kevin Calvin, aye.
Mike, next up is public comment, but if there's a timing issue with someone else, should we move public comment to move somebody else into that slot, or?
I think you're probably okay. We just wanted to have it be the first action item.
All right, well, with that said, do we have any public comment this evening? Ooh, there's a hand. I'm so excited. All right, there's Mr. Diamond, you have 3 minutes for your public comment.
Oh, it won't be that long. So I would just like to comment on the proposed new fire station. I think we all would agree that the station is in need of replacement. The taxpayers of the town have already approved this in the past at a proposed cost of $4 to $5 million. Now the new proposal is for $25 million. I would expect some explanation on how the town of Norfolk and its taxpayers will afford this. There is also discussion of an addition to the Freeman School at a possible cost of $40 to $50 million. And I hope that there will be transparency on what the cost will be to each and every taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment this evening? I don't see any. Amanda?
No, I don't see any.
All right, moving on to item number 3.
So in your packet is a letter from Recreation Director Ann Proto about a generous gift of a xylophone that Mr. and Mrs. Antonellis would like to give to the town and have placed on Town Hill. So this item is before you because, as you know, Select Board should formally accept gifts, and the board also is responsible for the events and the happenings on Town Hill and its use. And so Anne is here along with I see Mr. Meisner. Mr. Antonellis. I'm not sure if anyone else is joining us to give you more background about it, so the board can consider whether or not it wants to go forward. So I'd recommend turning it over to Anne.
Good evening. Hi. Thank you very much for listening to this great idea and generous contribution and donation by the Antonellises. Musical instruments are becoming more and more popular in parks, but not just playground type parks, in parks where adults and families can enjoy them. I think a lot of people have seen them in playgrounds for many years. The difference between those instruments and this instrument, this is actually a tuned instrument. It's in C major. There's an octave. The play equipment typically in playgrounds is not tuned, and I think if we've all spent some time in playgrounds, we would know that when kids are playing it. This is much more pleasing to hear. And I think we probably have all heard of the studies that show that music, is a catalyst for problem solving and creative thinking. So there are more and more studies and that music brings people together. I think we could say that we probably know that as well. And it gives a sense of community. It's really a nice way to bring people to the common areas that we keep and are for the residents. We've recently added 3 benches through the Shared Streets program. Actually, there are more than that up there now. So, we're creating more of a sense of a place to go, a destination. And with the beer gardens and then the other community activities on Town Hill, it's one more thing to keep people around and give them something to enjoy.
Thank you very much. Can somebody tell me more? Now, I've read all of the schematics and I've looked at the picture. It looks really cool. I am not musical, despite my mom's best efforts and like 20 years of piano lessons. But so can someone tell me a little bit about it? The instrument itself. I know it's in the packet, but I think people would like to hear about it. I think it's really cool. So, which obviously is showing my hand a little bit, but there you go.
Tom, do you want to take on that and answer that?
So it's down. We did see it in a public park in Connecticut, actually, and then we started thinking about our own community, thinking that what it idea it would have to put it either in the playground or the public space. I think we decided that the public space, such as Town Hill, would be much nicer because so many people would use it. Again, I can't play any instrument at all. So to hear other people make some kind of sound and resonate around, it just brings joy, I think, to a lot of people. It'll be an eye-opener to many, the young and the old. The benches are a nice touch because people can sit there and listen to other people, make some music on it. It's not a huge piece. I think it's only about 2 feet wide, the total width of it. And we did speak of having a sign to put on it if there's a program going on the hill that would place over it temporarily so people would respect the other program going on and people, children and adults, whatever, aren't trying to play music. So we just thought it'd be a great idea, and we'd love if the town would accept this. I have it here at my home already. And at this point, I think we're waiting for the ground to thaw again. And hopefully in the spring, we can have music on the town hill.
Thank you very much. I think that's the coolest thing. I have no questions. I just think it's really cool. So I will turn it over to Anita and then Kevin for any questions that they may have.
I think it's really cool too. And thank you for your generous donation. I think that's fabulous. Music is the difference. Music and sport, I need to say, are the difference between being awake and being alive, right? It's those kinds of things that bring us together as a community. And I think that's fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, from my perspective, I agree. I think this is fantastic. I think it's going to be a great addition to Town Hill. With a fourth grader who just chose snare drum for his first instruments, I can tell you that I'm slightly worried about what this will mean for the people of Norfolk, but as they get better, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. So thank you so much again. We really appreciate it.
So I think then we just need a motion that's in the packet.
I move that the board vote to accept the gift of a musical instrument from Tom and Lori Antonellis and authorize its installation on Town Hill.
We have a second.
Second.
Roll call vote. All those in favor. Carolyn Vantine, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, on to item number 4, which looks somewhat familiar.
Yes, this is the actual, this is the action item for the flammables permit for Camsha coatings if the board is ready to take it up.
Thank you. I don't have any further need for discussion, but I don't know, Anita, if you do, and I see you shaking your head, and Kevin, no. All right, then I'll entertain a motion. Do I have a motion?
I move that the board vote to grant an application for a flammable liquids license to Camsha Coating Systems for their facility located at 360 Main Street.
Second.
Roll call vote. All those in favor saying aye. Carolyn Vantine, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
Kevin Calcutt, aye.
And I just want to thank you for your partnership with our fire department. We're grateful for that relationship, and thank you very much.
Well, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to continue to grow in Norfolk. And this is one of the big steps that we need to do. And like I said, we all look forward to the new building down there. So thank you all for your time. And thank you, Chief Kenny, for your help along the way as well.
Thank you.
Item number 5.
This is the board for the board to consider ratifying the collective bargaining agreement with the Norfolk Municipal Clerical employees. As you know, we started negotiations with them last spring for the contract that was expired on June 30th of 2021. For various reasons, we did not reach agreement before then, but I'm pleased to say that we have at this point within the parameters set by the board. And the clerical union actually did vote to ratify this agreement last Thursday night. So and we have a signed copy in our office. If the board is ready to do the same, you could vote to ratify it so that it can go into effect for the period July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2024.
Great. Well, I don't have any questions or comments that I need to make or questions that I need answered, but I don't want to speak for everybody. Anita's shaking her head no. Kevin, do you have any questions, comments?
Good, thank you.
With that said, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board vote to ratify its successor collective bargaining agreement with the Norfolk Municipal Clerical employees as represented by Local 301 AFL-CIO CLC for the period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Roll call vote. All of those in favor saying aye. Carolyn Van Tyne, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Very much for everybody for their hard work. On to item number 6.
So as you know from the meeting on December 21st, where the board accepted the feasibility study for the fire station and authorized this fire station building committee to move forward into a schematic design, the way we structured the charge to the committee required that at each step in the process to make sure that the project stays on the track that you're comfortable with, we come back to the board at those points. And so the next point is to authorize the amendments to both the owner's project manager contract with the Vertex companies and the contract for the architectural services, Dorr & Whittier, to continue through the phases. So the committee sought proposals from both firms for the next phases and vetted those at the meeting that we had on January 5th, and then worked with the committee fully unanimously approved both of those proposals after discussing them with the firms and amongst themselves, after which I have been working with town council and both firms to make sure that these documents are satisfactory to town council, which they are. So joining us tonight is Chair of the Committee, Kevin Champagne, to go talk with you about it in a little more detail, as well as both the principals of both of the firms for any questions that you may have about them. So I'll leave it there and turn it over to Kevin if that's okay with you.
Thanks, Blythe. So I think Blythe did a pretty good summarization of kind of how we got to what we're presenting to you tonight. As she mentioned, we, as a committee, received the proposals from Dorr & Whittier and Vertex. I think, as she mentioned, we're really only kind of approving the beginning design phases here, although their proposals are all encompassing, including their estimated costs through construction. And that was a request by the committee members, just so we could kind of get the full picture of what this may cost us if the project continues to move forward, which obviously we hope it does. We met on January 5th to review the proposals. It was a fairly lengthy meeting. I don't know if anybody has ventured to watch it. It was about 3.5 hours long. We obviously didn't talk about the proposal the entire time, but a good portion of that time. So we had some really good discussion, clarification on what was in the proposals, what wasn't in the proposals, what was in some of the allowances that Dorr & Whittier was listing, which are kind of outside the scope of we'll call it basic services and are items that may or may not come up during the design process. So with all that, the entire committee unanimously felt that the fees were acceptable and approved to bring them to here tonight. As I mentioned, we did get kind of the estimated costs completely through construction, because while not the end all be all, typically their OPM fees and architectural fees, AE fees are compared to a percent of the construction costs as a gut check, just to make sure is the number too low, is the number too high, is it right where it should be. And on Vertex's proposal, typically OPM fees through construction average about 4 to 6% of the estimated construction cost. Vertex's proposal here through construction, not what you're approving tonight, is 4.5%. Actually, I think 4.7%. So definitely on the lower end of that range. We asked them for some clarification on why they thought that was, and typically they're required to provide all their fees even before feasibility starts. So the fact that we were able to only get their feasibility fee up front and now negotiate schematic design onwards, able to get a tighter number because the project is a little bit more defined. Dorr & Whittier's proposal, again, typically AE fees are somewhere in the order of 10 to 12% of construction costs. Their total through construction, including allowances, is 11.3%, which is a little higher than average, but the vast majority of that is in construction phase services. While we feel that their proposal is appropriate, it's certainly something the town can negotiate if we want to have fewer services during construction, but we just felt, given kind of some of the past projects in town, that more construction, more time during construction and more services during construction could be beneficial. So we left it as it is, but obviously that's a negotiable number since we're not approving construction tonight. But I just wanted to give some background on why we felt those fees were appropriate, just where they kind of landed in quote unquote typical fees. I think with that, we have several people from Vertex, John Lemieux and Doran Whittier, Ron Lamar, Jason Harris, and Don Walter here to ask if you have any specific questions. I can field any questions that you have as well if I can answer them for the committee. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the select board.
So I'll start. I won't take up too much time because I'm sure that the other members of the board also have questions. And I'm mindful of, as you just said, that there's still room for negotiating in the future regarding construction, that this is a different phase. Blythe had indicated that the proposals were vetted at the meeting on the 5th. Were they negotiated? I mean, was there like a number that was given and any pushback, or was it just sort of, and I understand I can go back and watch the 3.5 hours myself.
Sure.
And I will, I am sure. But what went into, like, again, I'm mindful, and we heard it at the opening today in the public comment, and I know I'm sort of the naysayer, the Debbie Downer, who's always sort of like, we're doomed. I'm mixing my cartoons, right? We're all going to die. But I'm mindful of the fact that this is still going to be a price tag that people, or Kevin got my reference, I can see that, that people are going to then at town meeting be like, whoa, our money, what went into the negotiations to keep things tight? I know somebody was texting me saying that they had watched the planning board meeting and that there may be, that the roof may cost more. Like, already the people are starting to get panicky, and rightly or wrongly, right? But perception is everything. Not everyone's going to be able to come to your meet and greets. A lot of people are going to come in cold to town meeting. What could you tell me and them now about what you did to be good stewards of their money? It's your money, it's my money, but it's their money too, so
Sure.
that they feel that people aren't just giving a blank check.
Sure. And obviously everyone on the committee, or 5 members of the committee, are taxpayers as well. So, I mean, this is a project that we're all going to be paying into. As far as negotiating their fees, the fees themselves we felt were reasonable. So it really centered more on the vast majority of the discussion centered on what services are we getting, give us a more in-depth explanation, particularly the OPM fees. I'm an engineer by trade, so I have a little bit more background in what is in the AE fee. So it was more the OPM fee, what assistance are we getting during the pre-qualification process, which is, a state mandated process where we pre-qualify contractors that are to do the work. So how is the OPM going to guide us through that process? How are they vetting the plans during the design process to make sure that all the trades are coordinated? Things of that nature. The architectural fees mostly centered on getting clarification of what was in some of the allowances for permitting fees, for septic design costs, and making sure that we understood, since those are items that are going to be billed on a time and hourly rate basis, knowing what was in that and what we would be paying for out of that amount and what's being paid for out of the lump sum basic fees amount. So I think if you watch the 3.5 hours, you're not going to see a lot of negotiation down of the fees, because as I said, big picture, the fees look pretty reasonable to us. So that was really, our stance was more getting clarification on what was in those numbers and making sure it aligned with what we needed for the project.
If I could add to that,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, 2 things. One, Vertex gave us a fee for the feasibility study, and they actually came in about $10,000 less than that. For that first phase, they billed us just for the work done, not just a percentage of the fee. So we're actually starting this next phase in a little bit better position. And I think that theme will carry through the rest of the project. And I see John nodding his head. And then on the architectural side, I found it interesting and helpful, having done a couple of these projects in my past, that generally the percentage of fee that goes into these beginning stages is a little higher, and the construction administration is a little less. In this case, they've chosen to make construction administration about 40% of the total. So while we all of us in the committee, certainly want to see this project get all the way to the finish line, the town is only signing up right now through the bidding phase. We're not contracting for construction administration because we don't, have enough funds to build a project as we think we need to build it. So if the board decides to approve these tonight, you're only approving through bidding. We have the funds available to do that now, and in their, depending on what the project ends up being that goes to the town meeting, perhaps that number will change a little bit, in the future. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Were you going to add something to that? I know you guys started at the same time. It's one of the benefits and beauties of Zoom. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think, Blythe hit on some of the things that I was just going to share and those finer points. And just to, a little bit is just from what Chairman Champagne had shared, a lot of the discussion in that meeting was about maximizing how every dollar and every dime is used and how it best benefits the town. I mean, that was a lot of the discussion, whether we moved a dollar from, not that simple, but moving from a category to a category, where did it best fit and where did it best put us in position to, have the best end product? So there was a lot of discussion about that. There was some healthy discussion with our facilities manager and, the members of the committee, really trying to address and hammer away at, how are we going to maximize the use of all of those proposed funds?
Thank you. Well, that was sort of, the high level. I didn't want to get too far into the weeds. It's not my role. That's Mr. Champagne's et alia's role. So with that, I will turn it over to Anita for questions.
I just have one question and one comment, just out of my own lack of knowledge about the process. When you talk about 4% is that 4% of the of a fixed cost that we've determined, or 4% of the total cost as it turns out to be?
It's 4%. The 4% is of the estimated construction cost. So essentially, the percent of construction cost is, you've defined your building, you have a rough idea of how much it's going to cost. The comparison is, as a project gets bigger, then the OPM fee and the architectural fee to design that building is going to get bigger. So if it's typically 10% of the construction cost, if you have a $20 million construction project versus a $10 million construction project, your fees are going to be bigger. It's a longer design process. It's a longer construction process. So it can be helpful to know kind of the all-in cost as a comparison to that construction cost. What I will say is that, Doran Whittier's number is a lump sum number. So the design phase number is a lump sum number. The construction phase is obviously still negotiable. So if the construction cost goes up to 18 million instead of 17.8 million, there's not an increase in architectural fees unless we're adding scope to their work. So if the material costs go up some amount, there's not an increase in the number. It's a baseline to look at it and say, what are we getting for what we're paying for? Are the fees in line with what other towns are paying for similar services? It's not we're not approving them as a percent of construction cost, that now if construction cost goes up or down, their fee goes up or down. It's a lump sum number, but the construction cost gives it something to compare it against that is a baseline to other projects.
Thank you. I was thinking about that because I was just wondering if there were incentives for these organizations to help us come in under budget if possible.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they're like I said, Doran Whittier's fee is lump sum, so it's not tied to where the construction cost now ends up. We, the committee, are using the construction cost number to check their number. You know, they didn't take that number and just take a percentage of it. We're using it as a check for ourselves. They're obviously all big numbers. You want to make sure that it's in line with what other communities are paying.
Thank you. And then the comment I wanted to say is every time your committee comes forward to us, I am so impressed with the level of thoughtfulness and expertise that's going into this process. It's exciting to me to have such a knowledgeable community participating in the process. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the great things about being at the end of the line is that everybody typically answers all the questions that one would have by the time it gets to me, so I can just fill it up with appreciative fluff and whatnot. So I'll throw two comments out there. The first one is, I think that just like Anita had just mentioned, we're seeing front and center the impact of the makeup that we put together for this committee coming to fruition, coming to and producing the kind of input that we were looking for. As we move forward. I mean, you have such a range of experience between engineering and architectural design and, you know, the expert within the fire department. I think that all of that put together is really yielding incredible benefit for the town. And I really do want to echo Anita's appreciation for everything you guys are putting into this. So thank you very much. The one comment I did want to make was kind of along the lines to Mr. Diamond's public comment. I've heard from a lot of residents, as I'm sure many others have, about their concerns about the cost of the project, and absolutely do not need an answer tonight. But as we move forward with this, I think that we are going to have to reconcile the delta that exists between what was proposed back in 2015 versus what's being proposed now. And I'm sure that there's a variety of reasons that we're going to be able to provide to bridge that gap for folks as it pertains to inflation, as it pertains to learnings about the site and whatnot. But I think that is going to become one of the most important things that we're going to have to educate the community on as we move forward through the proposal and the community meetings in the near future. So just wanted to emphasize that and call that out a little bit more. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. And while not obviously part of the proposals, we do have one of the discussion items at our last meeting was planning out future community events. I think we've got maybe 4 that we were tentatively planning over the next few months. And certainly at those meetings, we plan to present the construction cost, how we got to this point, and what the impact will be to taxpayers.
Thank you.
Kevin, anything else you want to add?
I don't have anything to add unless any of you have questions for the designer or the OPM themselves.
Nope, I think that the packet was pretty exhaustive from my perspective. Anita or Kevin, do you have anything else?
No. Thank you.
Otherwise, I think I am entertaining a motion, correct? I do believe I am, and I've lost my paper, so. Yeah, I am. I'm entertaining a motion.
I move that the board approve. I'm sorry, go ahead, Anita. Did I skip the rotation?
I'm confused as to whose turn it is, so go ahead.
I don't know that there is. I don't know. We should probably create an.
I move that the board approve a contract amendment for both the Vertex companies and Doran Whittier Architects for schematic design through bidding on the fire station replacement project.
Second.
Roll call vote. All those in favor saying aye. Carolyn Van Tine, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
That brings us to 7.
So as you may know, if you're following the trail of all the details with the American Rescue Plan, the ARPA funds, one of the allowable uses for those funds is stormwater projects. And so as we work on pulling together a proposal for the board on how the town might want to consider spending its ARPA funds, it seemed important to refresh everybody's memory, or maybe for the first time, what the town's obligations are under our federal MS4 permit that was issued in, I think, 2018. So I can claim no credit for all the good work that both Blair Crane and Barry LaRiviere put into this presentation that you're going to see. There's a lot of detail, and we don't expect there won't be a test in 10 minutes on it. But hopefully it'll give you some basis for why we're going to suggest the town spend some money on that going forward. So for tonight, we have invited the planning board to join us because it's an important topic in their world as well. And I see Rich and a couple others on the meeting tonight. I think the takeaway at the end is that we've been spending about $50,000 a year in monies to get out of the starting gate with our federal requirements. Besides some money that's in the public works budget, and that's going to go up in the future by a lot. And so we kind of have a saving grace, if you will, that there is another bucket we can charge that to. But for now, for next couple of years, perhaps. But until then, I said we want to be planning for the future. So if it's okay with you, we'd like to turn the meeting over to Blair and Barry and let Barry share his screen and walk you through it and just give you, like I said, a little bit of background on something that maybe you know a lot about. I'm not sure, but hopefully you will know a little bit more about it for your next water cooler chat at the office or wherever. Because it's important. So it's okay with you, Barry? You want to take it away?
Yep. Can I get the screen share?
I think you can just click on screen sharing and share your screen.
No, I'm getting. I got it host disabled.
Maybe Amanda can make you a co-host. How's that?
No luck.
I just made you a co-host. Can you?
Yeah, I think we're good now.
Okay.
Let me give it a shot.
Barry, do you want me to try?
I'm bringing it up right now. Let me see if we can get it. And
while we're waiting for Barry to do that, just a reminder that we've got two important topics: this tonight, and then the sidewalk ADA presentation. So the planning board generously agreed to come visit with us tonight to watch this, as long as we promise to come to their meeting on the 26th. And learn about the results of this study of all of our sidewalks and ramps and crosswalks. So,
looks like I'm all good. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Excellent. So thank you for having us tonight. There, as Blythe mentioned, there is a lot of information here. I'm kind of gloss over all the minutia and try to give you the meat to as what we're looking at. All right. So tonight we're going to look at the Municipal Separate Stormwater System, also known as the MS4, purpose of it, the history, a little bit of a timeline, and our current permit status. We're going to look at the MS4 requirements, our minimum control measures, and our total maximum daily loads. where we are with our year 3 and 4 permit requirements for those years and how we're going to implement that, and then take a look at the budgets of what we're currently looking at and what we're going to be looking at in the future. So the MS4 is a whole lot of information here. The idea of it is, in the past, the emphasis was on protecting drinking water. The realization came that we need to protect stormwater because ultimately that's what we're drinking. So there's a bunch of information here that you guys can refer to at some other time. The history, so the original NIPD's permit started in 2003. The small general permit was signed into law in 2016. There were several years of lawsuits with local communities suing the EPA in the DEP regarding a lot of their requirements. They came to an agreement in 2018, so that's when the permit officially started for us in 2018. So our permit status, so in 2018, we had to submit our notice of intent. We got our discharge permit in 2019. So this permit cycles from September to September. It's a little bit different cycle. So year 1 was September 2019, year 2 was September 20, and year 3 was September 21. So to date, we've pretty much met all the requirements that we've needed. This is a brief timeline of showing it when the initial permit was implemented. They're stretching it out to 10 years, but this is actually one of those things that they're expecting not to go away. There was different milestones throughout the course of the process. So in general, the compliance requirements involve several departments in the town of Norfolk, the DPW, land use, facilities, and recreation. There's minimum control measures, MCMs, that we must meet annually. 1 is public education and outreach. 2 is public involvement and participation. 3 is illicit discharge detection and elimination, IDDE program. Construction site stormwater runoff control, stormwater management and new development and redevelopment, pollution prevention, and good housekeeping. Another little twist to this project, to our requirements are, we're in the Charles River, and Charles River has a phosphorus issue. So we need to look at reducing our phosphorus reduction by 23%. I've attended several seminars and talked to a lot of other towns around us. EPA compliance audits have begun. MS4 program compliance must be taken seriously. EPA has issued fines and consent orders. And what's coming out of the EPA and DEP, that lack of funding is not an excuse to not be in compliance. So they want everybody to strive to be in compliance. So MCM1 is our publication, education and outreach program. You've seen a lot of information on the DPW website, town website. We did some work with the town clerk. It's just to get information out there to the public about lawn and garden, phosphorus reduction, where to put your pet waste, what to do with leaves. So it's more of just getting the community involved, ground roots, really easy things that we can do to clean up our stormwater. Public involvement and participation is MCM number 2. That's where we're putting all of our information on the DPW website, our annual permits, our stormwater management plan, our IDE plan, and our stormwater operation and maintenance plan. And we also kind of got going, I know people have seen this image out and about, is the Adopt a Catch Basin program that helps us keep catch basins clear when we have snow and rain events coming into town. The IDDE program. So currently this doesn't apply to Norfolk. So it's a sanitary sewer overflow survey. We're not considered having sanitary sewer, although we have the wastewater treatment plant at Meeting House. It's not townwide, it's isolated. It's more like a large septic system in the grand scheme of things. Our stormwater network mapping, it's a big component of the program. So we're actually ahead of schedule. So we're a year and a half ahead of schedule, and 98% complete on mapping our program. We have a written IDDE program done. Outfall inventory and ranking. So as part of the mapping, we had to find all the outfalls in the town of Norfolk, 283 and change, go out and do dry weather and wet weather sampling of these outfalls to see if there are any contaminants coming out of them. We had to do a drainage catchment delineation investigation. That's complete. And like I said, we completed our sampling of our outfall, and staff training is ongoing. So one of the big helps for us is not having townwide sewer. We're estimating that 85% of the water that comes into Norfolk gets recharged through the septic systems. So that's a really good feather in our cap. MCM 4 and 5 is stormwater management. So we just recently updated our stormwater bylaw. Site plan review, working with the Land Use Department and Planning Board, is ongoing, and construction site inspections have been ongoing. So I've been working with Rich McCarthy, developing actually an app that we can use on our phone to track site inspections. One of the big components of this one is we have to have records when we visit, different construction sites and inspect things going on. MCM 5, which really is the big one that we're looking at right now. We need to look at the regulatory assessment of low impact development, LID, and green infrastructure, municipal stormwater, BMP, best management practices, retrofit. So this is looking at existing municipal properties and see if we can include something to the design that helps us clean stormwater. For example, we're installing a rain garden at the DPW salt shed. The fire station would be a good place to look at, adding something that could clean stormwater, and looking at the new school. The other thing we need to look at is reduction of impervious cover. We need to assess current street designs and parking lot guidelines. Good housekeeping. This is just the checklist of things that are ongoing. Our equipment and vehicle storage and containment, that's in excellent shape. Building and facilities. So we need to look at best manager retrofits of 5 projects. So we need to have 5 projects that we've looked at that we can basically retrofit in the future. Parks and open space, we need to take a look at fertilizer reduction. I know we've done a good job of limiting the phosphorus in our fertilizer, but there's some more steps we have to take since we are in the Charles River. MS4 infrastructure, operation, and manual procedures. We're now looking at biannual street sweeping. So sweeping all the town streets in spring and fall, and biannual catch basin cleaning, cleaning all of our catch basins, both spring and fall. Stormwater, BMP, O&M procedures. We need to inspect all town-owned BMPs. That's detention ponds, retention ponds, infiltration structures. We need to have a written program detailing the activities and procedures that we will implement to make sure these are maintained from now on, and develop a written procedure for structural maintenance. So there's a few pictures down here, and it might be tough to see. This is an overgrown detention basin, a blocked and damaged outfall, and then we have some damage on a culvert on Seekonk Street. So the Charles River tributaries, TMDL. Charles River bacteria and pathogen reduction is a major focus of what we have to look at. We updated our stormwater bylaw, and our public education and outreach is always ongoing. We need to develop a phosphorus control plan. So looking at fertilizer reduction in parks and space, our street sweeping, our catch basin cleaning, and municipal retrofits. So our requirement is to reduce phosphorus in Norfolk by 23%. Non-structural reduction, which would be biannual street sweeping and catch basin cleaning and a leaf pickup, reduces us by 3 kilograms. What we need to look at is retrofitting our existing detention and retention basins and other infiltration structures to reduce phosphorus. So you can see the majority of what we're looking at is structural reduction. So our year 4 permit requirements, which we're in right now, We need to develop a report to assess existing regulations for low impact and green infrastructure. So that'll be done with the Land Use Department, Planning Board, Zoning Board, and the DPW. We need to identify the 5 projects for municipal retrofits. So we need to look at municipally owned properties and see what we could do to retrofit the existing BMPs for phosphorus removal. We need to develop a report to assess existing regulations for reduction of impervious cover, review current street standards and parking lot guidelines. So the Land Use Department, Planning Board, Zoning Board, and DPW will be looking at that together. Now we have a past due requirement. So in year 3, we were supposed to look at all of our detention retention basins, calculate what we could do to retrofit these for phosphorus reduction. We were supposed to implement a program for the MS4 infrastructure maintenance and establish a written infrastructure maintenance program. The good thing about this permit is as long as we're showing a good faith effort, there are no penalties for not reaching yearly permit requirements. So the next slide's got to kind of outline how we're going to meet our past due year 3 requirements in year 4 and year 5. So we have approximately 50 detention retention basins and over 60 infiltration structures. We need to go out and actually look at these structures and assess them for maintenance required. The issue we have is there's a lack of long-term maintenance, and they've left these structures in poor condition. We also have to determine the ownership. Through some preliminary investigation, Rich and I have found that some of these structures aren't on easements, so they're technically on private property. Another curve to this is if it was designed, constructed, and installed on or after November 18th, 1996, it may now be considered a wetland because it was never maintained. So there's some bits and pieces of information we have to gather. Once we gather all this information, then we have to come up with a maintenance prioritization plan and associated costs for going in and cleaning out the existing detention and retention basins. So once we do that, in year 5, we can go in and begin to assess what we can do for retrofits to these detention or retention basins to remove phosphorus. So it's going to be a bit of a long process. There's a lot of room in the annual report where we can explain all this. And it's helpful for DEP and EPA to know that, hey, we're trying to move ahead, but we have these little roadblocks in our way that we need to get through first. So I'm going to take you to what we're looking at for our budget. So from 2019 to 21, the town has allocated $50,000 to the Stormwater Fund. And then 2021, we added it as a budget to the DPW overall budget. 22 and 23. So the $50,000 that we've been using to date is getting us in compliance. So it's doing all the paperwork, the stormwater mapping, the outfall sampling. Luckily, we were able to do a lot of this in-house, which freed up a lot of budget dollars to go to other things to get us ahead. So in 22 and 23, the compliance budget should go down to about $16,000 per year, because like I said, pretty much the heavy lift of the paperwork is done. Now we have to actually move into implementing a lot of these things. So our catch basin cleaning budget. So in the past, catch basin cleaning has been funded through the annual highway budget, so the DPW budget for $25,000. The cost in the past has been based on the amount cleaned and the amount of material removed. Our amount of material has decreased because we've stopped using sand as part of our snow operations, and we use salt. But the number of catch basins have increased because our mapping is so good now, we're cleaning out catch basins that were never cleaned before. Currently, the material removed from the catch basin is stockpiled at the DPW. At some point in time, we need to visit removing this. That estimate's about $100,000. So in 2019, it was $25,000 for us to clean 1,500 catch basins. It was $25,274 to clean 1,700 in 2020. In 2021, we cleaned 1,800 and it was $24,000. So you can see the cost has gone up the last few years because now we've finally located all of our structures. So year 4, remember, started in September. We did our first round of catch basin cleaning, which was 1,972 structures for $26,000, which came out of the detailed DPW budget. So we only had 25,000, so we're already over there. And we have to clean the catch basins again for a second time. Now, the good thing about this one is our surge bid added in a catch basin cleaning item. So it's going from $13.50 to $33. It includes removing all the catch basin material. So it's no longer to be stored at the DPW. We don't have to worry about getting rid of it. It's going to be carried off site. I am talking to other contractors and looking at different pricing options. It's also anticipated that our numbers are going to go down because what we're going to find is not all catch basins need to be cleaned twice a year. We'd have catch basins at the bottom of hills, on corners where they collect more material. Once we do our next round of assessment, we actually record the percentage of material in each catch basin. So then we can kind of analyze it and say, hey, right on year 5, you can see I'm estimating that we do, all 2,000 once, and then we're cutting that number in half. But you can see from this chart that our number for catch basin cleaning has definitely gone up. Street sweeping. Now, this one's a little bit interesting. So street sweeping was never a line item in the DPW budget. It was always taken out of daily maintenance, our overall daily maintenance budget. Excuse me. So in the past, we had an outside contractor come in, sweep all the roads in the town. It took them about 2 weeks. The DPW provided water and trucks to pick up the materials. 2 DPW staff for 2 weeks, which was about $4,000, and time lost from those employees doing anything else. 21 and 22, we took a shot at trying to do it in-house. We were able to get priority roads, mains, and collectors as needed street sweeping on secondary roads and cul-de-sacs, but we weren't able to get to everything like we were required to do. The work was inconsistent. We have millions of things we have to do, and dedicating a staff to a street sweeper for, now we're using 1 street sweeper, not 2, so it's taking twice as long. I looked at a couple proposals to have the outside contractor come in for 22 and 23 to do the sweeping twice a year. Be roughly $10,000 per visit, so $20,000. DPW would have to provide water, staff, and vehicles to carry the material away from the street sweeper. So it puts us in a better picture. The other thing that we have to look at is our street sweeper is 16 years old. It's a good street sweeper. We keep it running, but it's one of those things, the more we use it, the more stress and time we put on it, it's probably not going to last much longer. So the MS4 current and future budgets. So you can see I've kind of mapped this out to what we've done in 2019, 2021, our $50,000 per year, what we spent on reporting, what we were able to spend on compliance, street sweeping. So for the last 3 years, our all-in is like $215,000. Moving forward, you can see we're going to do the $16,000 a year for the reporting. Our compliance numbers significantly go up because of all the things that we've mentioned. Our street sweeping, our catch basin cleaning. So, $500,000 in year 5. And it's just going to keep going up from there because once we actually identify the 5 places that we want our municipally owned properties that we retrofit, we actually have to look at the engineering, design, and implementing those retrofits. Oh, sorry. Oop. Wrong button. Oh, I don't want to do that. Sorry about that. Yeah, so as I noted here, is not included other costs with the BMP retrofits, design and construction. Those will be determined once we've identified the possibilities of retrofitting municipal properties, looked at retrofitting all the detention and retention basins, and then that number will come to us.
Barry, can you switch to the slide that you'd been on? Because on my screen, I can only see the very beginning slide.
Can you see it now?
I can just see the title slide, not the numbers at the end.
Maybe I have two open.
I mean, this title slide's nicer than the big numbers, but.
Can we see that?
I just can see everyone who's in the meeting. It's not screen sharing at the moment.
All right, let me, I got one screen and it's not big enough. How about that?
There we go.
Yep,
Perfect.
there it is.
There we go. Oh, sorry. So used to having two monitors. This one monitor thing isn't doing it for me. Can we see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. So to recap, we are looking at big numbers. Total in from year 1 to year 5, we're close to $1 million, and it's going to be going up from here. We have some future considerations to think about. Is there ARPA funding we can look at? Stormwater utility, the MVP program. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of grants out there for the stormwater. A lot of them are for the public involvement and the outreach, which we pretty much take care of in-house. Not a lot for the big ticket items that most towns are facing. So for future considerations, we got to look at our yearly budget scenarios, our long-term grants that are available are more of these shovel-ready projects. So again, it's looking at, having money for the engineering design, the BMP retrofits and things like that. So then we can actually chase grants when they come out, different funding opportunities. There's going to be definitely some ongoing compliance, the infrastructure maintenance. So, we kind of highlighted the work that we needed to do on the detention basins, bringing them up to snuff. We have to look at all of our culverts, all of our catch basins, our manhole. We've had a pretty robust catch basin and manhole repair program the last couple of years. I think we're well over 100 structures repaired in-house. But as soon as we repair 25 or so, 25 more fall apart. We need to look at maximizing project potential, which we do it a lot of. It's combining, different funding sources to create a large project that can get a lot accomplished, especially for the municipal BMP retrofits. Looking at a retrofit for the fire station, where we're looking at the new school. What possibilities are there to help us meet some of our stormwater standards. ARPA is going to be a big one, and we can use Chapter 90 for stormwater. The issue with the Chapter 90, we start using Chapter 90 for stormwater, it takes away from what we can do for our roadways. Another thing to consider about in the future is establishing a stormwater utility. There's been several towns in Massachusetts throughout the last few years who've gone that route. Millis, Ashland, Pepperell, Shrewsbury, Bellingham, towns close to us. Franklin's actually in the process of considering the stormwater just like we would water or sewer or gas. Stormwater becomes utility, an enterprise fund that creates money so that we can maintain everything. And then just wrap up the big 6, just a reminder, litter, household waste, auto waste, pesticides, herbicides, yard waste, all things we don't want in our stormwater.
Barry, can you go to that slide with that graphic of the big 6? Because we can still only see the budget slide.
Really? And that's weird.
Yeah.
I know. You can see the budget, right?
I can see the budget.
Future considerations?
No.
Wow, that's weird.
You were on a roll, so I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yes, you could have. Oh, I'm sorry.
So, it's okay.
I don't know why it's not showing.
Well, it's in there. It's in everyone's packets.
Yeah, it's in everybody's packets.
Right.
Sorry about that. I don't know why it's not showing.
It's just technology. So I think that really wraps up what Barry wanted to present. And then, as I said at the beginning, we've really thrown a lot of information at you, and there won't be a test.
No.
But wanted to know if you had any questions right now, or it's just good background for when we come back to you with some ideas on how we're going to spend those ARPA funds.
Excuse me, I thank you for that presentation. I think a lot of it I have to sort of let germinate, think about, come back with some questions. I'm sure there's going to be some questions regarding the ARPA funds, regarding budgeting in the upcoming weeks and months. But one thing that was interesting to me, Barry, you said at the outset of your talk that you had attended a number of seminars. I'm curious what those seminars were. Where were they? So that was an interesting point to me.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them. Central Mass Regional Planning Association. So it's a bunch of communities that got together in Central Mass and created a giant stormwater group. So they have little talks all the time. EPA, DEP have been out leading the forefront with a lot of information for municipalities on how to deal with this. Again, it's one of those things it's an unfunded mandate. So everybody's struggling with how can we achieve all these things that you're asking us to, but you're not giving us the funding. So DEP, MAPC, Neponset Valley Watershed Association has had a lot of information. Blue Coalition, CERG. So there's a lot of stuff out there. We're not.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I guess I did because I just interrupted you, but I didn't mean to. Are they holding actual seminars where you're going for like a weekend, or is it more of like a Zoom talk, or where we who also want to know more information can go and look up and read the transcript? That's kind of where I was.
Yeah, they originally when it first started, we actually were able to help through Surge. We actually held a couple live seminars here right in Norfolk at the library. Since COVID, everything's gone to Zoom. The original live events were more about getting your ducks in a row for the permit, how you're going to implement it, things like that. As we progressed, there's been more point. A lot of I was surprised the EPA and Mass DEP has had a lot of involvement in giving guidance to the communities. I have a list of stuff that I could definitely share with you, Cece.
I'd love that. Yeah. I find this very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, there's actually one great DEP, Mass DEP, and EPA have actually combined like all this information on one resource or one website. So it's actually handy. Yeah, it's actually a handy tool for towns to go to.
No, I'd love to. That was kind of the direction I was going, because I appreciate your talk and what you put up on the screen. I understand that we have it in paper, but you know me, I like to drill down. So I appreciate that. So that's it for me, Anita, and then Kevin. Any questions at this time? I know it was a lot of information.
Yep. I had a question where I got confused on page 16, where you were talking. If you look on page 16, it talks about the cost per catch basin.
Yes.
It's like 16, 14, 13, 13, and then it goes 33. And so it almost triples in price from spring to fall. And I was wondering the reason behind that.
So currently the reason our price was so low, we use Truax, which is an outside contractor. This is what they do for a living. Our price was low because we were allowing them to stockpile all the catch basin cleaning materials at the DPW. So it didn't have to be trucked out. It didn't have to be taken anywhere. So what we've learned was in the past, they were looking for a better use determination to see if we can do something with all the catch basin cleanings we have. The only things we can do with them is put them underneath a roadway where we pave a road. The problem is there's so much organic material in them, you wouldn't want to use them under a road. Or we could use them on gravel roads, but they can't be in residential areas. So those are the two things that we would use it for, which we can't. The new price has gone up because the contract that we're looking at will actually truck this material out of town, so we don't have to deal with it anymore. So that's why it went from The first part of the season was the 1350. They cleaned all the catch basins, stockpiled at the DPW. Moving forward, this material will be taken out of Norfolk. And it can only be used to cap landfills, and there's one other use for it.
And so how were we dealing with it before?
Well, so right now I have a giant pile of it at the DPW that we now have to look at how to get rid of.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kevin?
Yeah, Barry, I just have one quick question for you. First of all, thank you for the great presentation, incredibly thorough breakdown as always. It's greatly appreciated. The Charles River watershed is a large community of municipalities around here going, all the way up north down through Millis, Medway, Medfield, Franklin. How are our surrounding communities doing in terms of their progress, in terms of achieving some of these goals that have been set out? Do you happen to have a feel for that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm in contact with other directors all the time. So one of the interesting things when this first came out, one of the reasons why, so Bellingham and Franklin actually led the charge of the lawsuit against the EPA and DEP for the phosphorus removal. So when it originally started, it was Milford, Bellingham, Franklin were the headwaters of the Charles River, and all the phosphorus was coming from this area. And everybody's like, well, wait a minute. There's a whole bunch of other towns on the Charles River. Why are you looking at us? So there was a lot of emphasis and a back and forth on this one. And that's why it took 2 years for the final agreement where the DEP and EPA actually modified, what their requirements were for the phosphorus. As for getting in compliance, both Bellingham went with the stormwater utility. Franklin's going with the stormwater utility to get the revenue to be able to do the retrofits. I can't remember the exact number, but Brutus was looking, the director in Franklin, it was something like, $35-36 million they were looking at to go in and retrofit their detention basins. Bellingham actually had a couple pilot studies done at a couple plazas and see what that would cost. And that was, we're talking $10-12 million. So the number is astronomical, and everybody's trying to figure out the best way to get it done.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think that Gary Searle has a
I was
question.
just going to say, I saw the yellow wave. I was so excited.
Yeah.
I was like,
There he
I've
is.
seen the yellow waving thing.
I almost forgot my question, but I'll try and piece it together again. I would ask, we have towns that are upstream from us, and there are towns that are downstream from us. And I formerly worked at a company that had to report out to the MWRA. And I'll use that as an example. In some cases, we took town water, but we had to scrub it, and that's how the Charles River got clean. We dealt with heavy metals. I worked for Duracell batteries at the time, and we couldn't have as many parts per billion of mercury in the water leaving as we had 3 coming in. We had to discharge at 1. That's how ridiculous it was at the time. The question I'm actually asking, though, is if contaminated water is coming into our town on rivers, is there an obligation for towns that are upstream from us to actually tell us about the water that is leaving their town and entering ours? And likewise, would we have to evaluate our water for any contaminants it picks up because of ground that it might travel over and go downstream to the next town?
So drinking water or stormwater?
I guess it's stormwater.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, that's kind of the unique thing we're in here because we're all in the Charles River. So our reduction is 23%. Franklin's might be a different percentage. Bellingham's might be a different percentage. I don't really know those off the top of my head. So that's what they're looking at. So the other part of this is, Charles River DEP and EPA is continually doing sampling on the Charles River. We recently posted, all the Lake Populatic, off of River Road, the Charles River, signs for don't eat the fish. There's pathogens, there's bacteria. So all that's kind of being studied. I don't know if there's a study that's, if there's an analysis that's saying, Medway is putting this into the river and it's affecting, Norfolk by X and Y. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but I know they're continually monitoring. I'm getting reports all the time. We have to now. Stop River was one of the big ones.
Yeah.
One of the bacteria and there's pathogens in the Stop River. So it's what we're seeing in a lot of it, as much as the septic systems are helping Norfolk for that water recharge. We all know it comes out of septic systems. A lot of that's infiltrating into their lakes and rivers.
Okay. And that's a little bit out, my question's a little bit outside of the scope, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but it is monitored. It definitely is. And I can definitely get you that information. I get it from time to time.
Okay. That's all right. Thank you.
Anyone else from the planning board or the select board with any questions at this time? Seeing none, I guess we're on to the next topic. What?
Sorry, the next topic is our quarterly update for you on finances, as we do both for the town overall and for the transfer station. And things continue to be good on both fronts. In your packet is the presentation, the spreadsheets too that Todd puts together on the overall town picture. Revenues are ahead of planned budget by 3.2%. I would point out that, interestingly to us, meals tax is $60,000 for towards a $70,000 budget. That's only through November, so we're hopeful about that for our restaurants. I also point out that we usually budget a pilot payment, which has been the payment by the owners of the former Southwood Hospital in lieu of a tax bill, because it's been bought. They're, as you know, you would have usually voted on that agreement in January, and it wasn't brought forward. The new owners have received a tax bill. So when that revenue comes in, it will go into real estate near the top. Licenses and permits are doing well, not quite as well as last year, but still ahead of what we planned at this point of the year. And as you'll see when we get to the transfer station, they've brought in $150,000 on an overall $250,000 budget. So for revenue, so that is looking very good as well. And then on the expense side, on the second sheet, you see the revenues and expenses together. Expenses are just under 49%, or a little less than half through the year. And that's right on track. Matter of fact, it's a little bit actually behind because, as you know, you just settled the clerical contract tonight, and employees who haven't received their increase from last year will get that. So that will bump up a little bit more, but nothing jumps out as a concern this year. So all good news on that front. And then also pleased to see where the transfer station is this year. And I know Blair and Barry are still on the call. We've got a one-page summary which shows you where we are just in 22, and then a lot of detail from prior years. We are in the red by just under $9,000 or $8,700. If you looked at the same report, you went back and looked at the same one we gave you last year, we were in a negative position by just over 9,000. So closing the gap so far this year, and encouraged about revenues, which are $14,000 ahead for quarter two from the same time last year. So I think we didn't raise rates this year, but I know we've been paying attention to making sure everyone's got a membership as they come through the gate, and just being careful about expenses, and it looks to be paying off. But to say, Blair and Barry are here for any questions you might have about that.
I have none. Anita?
No, none.
Kevin?
No questions. Thank you.
I guess that brings us to town administrator updates.
A few things. While I think is Rich still here on the call? Oh, yes, there he is. So I wanted to lead off with Southwood Hospital. Just a couple things. One, the PIP meeting has been scheduled for February 3rd. Hopefully that's on people's calendars for that meeting being held by GFI. Also, there was an email that went out to some people the last day or so concerned about some changes that Rich and I have talked with GFI about the grant and the tasks under that grant. I know that Rich can enunciate it better than I can, but the overall takeaway is that this grant was put together working with MAPC before we really understood where the direction GFI might want to go. And this is just making sure that it's a little bit more on point to the work that the town needs to do to plan and make sure that we have the appropriate citizen engagement in this whole process, and to be able to look more at the 40R process if that's what we just, and help us decide if that's the right outcome for the town. We have by no means made any hard decisions about what direction we should go, and I think that's really important to point out. So if it's okay, I'd like to just turn it over to Rich for a couple more comments on this, just to make sure everyone knows that we're on the same track, on the same page, and we haven't gone off on a different tangent. So Rich, help me out here.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Blight's comments, the modification to the scope is from the standpoint of potential outcome. If the town chooses to go the 40R direction, which deals with multifamily housing, well, let me step back just quickly. In terms of the housing production plan that was done in 2017, there was the recommendation to do high density multifamily housing at the Southwood Hospital site to find a project that would fit in terms of context in the town of Norfolk from an affordable rental project to get to that goal of 10% affordable housing. And so with that previous study in place, the concept behind that grant that was submitted was in May, was based on feedback that was received. Well, two things. One is when GFI, before they bought the property, came before the planning board, if you recall, with this big 600,000 square foot e-commerce facility. And clearly the takeaway from that and the public comments after that was, hey, we don't want e-commerce for a variety of different reasons. But we do want to look at potentially multifamily housing, which was already identified by the 2017 housing production plan, some other work that was done for other proposals on the property to help us solve that 40B issue for the town overall. The shift a little bit, I'll call modification, is the 40R route. If we go that route, requires more planning analysis, public participation, and an application to Department of Housing and Community Development that would have to go through their approval process. So the modification is if that route is viable and feasible and townspeople feel confident in it, we could have that as an end product. The original application that went in May, GFI wasn't engaged with the town at all. They were really silent in terms of what their future plans were. They maybe had their ideas, but we really didn't hear anything from them. So we put that grant out. Since that time, there has been a little bit more communication from them. And I think previously we have heard from them, or I think it's been relayed through this board and the planning board, that they've walked back the whole concept of a large warehouse facility because they're not interested in forcing something through the town that the townspeople don't want. And number one, it's not allowed there. So having said all that, this modification would set us up if we go that route. It's not that we have to go that route, but the work there would produce a product for us to do it. So that's the shift in the modification to the grant. Because it does require a town meeting vote to be adopted by a town meeting, requires Department of Housing and Community Development vote. And I think from previous discussions, regarding 40R, there could be benefits to townspeople as they learn more about it, as opposed to a 40B, if there was to be multifamily housing, high density multifamily housing. So I'll pause there for a moment.
So I just wanted to get that out there to you. We owe the folks who wrote the email certainly an answer back, but we wanted to make sure that you heard the latest and knew that we were, like I said, on a track. We think it's just good planning for the town. So the second thing, so thank you, Rich. That was a great overview. Second thing I wanted to cover was, don't know if any of you had a chance to look, take a gander at the website email I sent out this weekend. And we'd really love your initial reaction. So if you don't mind, I'd love to throw up 2 of the pages and just hear any feedback you'd love to give us. So let me see about sharing my screen. Amanda, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
I just made you a co-host, so you should be.
Oh, there we go. All right, let me get there. So here's the homepage, a possible layout for it. We picked them. We're focused on a more modern design than you often see in public websites in the state. And we wanted to focus on what was special about Norfolk. So this is a picture that we received from Jake Jacobson. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we use the town seal as kind of to play off of her colors. So that it's what drives the blue and the gold. With a navigation page at the top, which I'm showing it to you to look at it from the perspective of design and layout, not exactly what the words are or exactly whether we have those things at the top. That's the site map we have to get to next. But it's important to us to have it be very welcoming, to have that navigation bar that will really drive the site. Be really, hopefully people feel good about it when they see the search bar. It says, how can we assist you? Feeling like we're here to help you. Adding social media and the ability to translate, you see in the upper right. And we would plan to give photo credit for whoever submits photos, as you know we were looking for. And then our new subscribing to news is down near the bottom, as you can see right now. And then going down from there, excuse me while I scroll, you'll see new buttons that show you things that are most popular to people, agendas, job openings, online payments, a news layout that is hopefully with pictures that people, makes people want to follow those and click on them and learn more. And then at the bottom, upcoming events will have several kinds of calendars. We are thinking of having rotating pictures at the top, and we can change them every day, seasonally, whatever we decide to do. And the words Town of Norfolk in white that you see would actually fade into the background once you've clicked on the site after a few seconds. I can't see it on my screen, but there's also, because I've got pictures of everybody on the right for Zoom, but there's also an accessibility icon that helps people who need to use those services be able to find that. So as I say, you're welcome to just shout out any thoughts you have or email us, but the committee would love to know if this grabs you or doesn't grab you. I don't know if anyone would like to give us now or get back to us.
Is the accessibility icon the person with their little hand sticking out?
Yes.
It's on the right-hand side. It's the little round blue circle.
Yep.
That's it.
Cool. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I saw it when you sent it over, and I just thought it was great. And I was looking at it on my phone at the time and was really impressed. It's more impressive now when you're screen sharing it, and I can see it sort of at a full screen. And part of it, obviously, is the grabbiness of the photo. As a quick aside, I saw the 2 of the swans flying overhead yesterday, which I thought was pretty cool, because I just still don't get how they keep their neck going. But just that photo itself is amazing. And you're right, like this doesn't have that sort of ticky tacky, vibe of like done in my basement. It's very slick. It's beautiful. It's welcoming. I love the colors. So that's my initial reaction. Anita, Kevin?
So I agree. I think it's fantastic. I did have a couple of notes that I clearly did not send over to you ever. The first one was the font color for Norfolk up near the seal should probably be a different color than the background. I'm sure that's just a matter of the formatting example as opposed to what it would be in the end result. But if we're cognizant of that, we wouldn't run into it later on. The pictures are amazing, and I wouldn't ever put any text over the top of them, even if it does fade into the background. So, if we can focus just on the drop down to the top, the toolbar for any kind of directional stuff, I think that would be great. But man, that view is amazing.
Let me show you the department page for 1 second, and the reason I'm doing that is because the department page has the name of the department in a different location. I'd like to know what you think about that. So here is Public Works. They just built this one. We didn't ask them to build this one. They just did. Another Jake Jacobson picture, but here the name is to the bottom right. It doesn't take up the middle of the picture. Now it will not fade here because we don't want you to forget where you are. But I'm just curious if the placement does anything for you compared to the other one.
Much better. Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. But I think if you put the words there on the first page, you cover up the ducks and the swans.
That's going to be a problem with every picture. Like we've talked about having the search bar in the middle of the picture, but then it takes away from the picture. So right now it's at the top. It's hard to make those decisions, but this is just an example of a department page. So you see the same top navigation and you have buttons that are special just to this department. So the way she just laid it out for now is all the divisions, followed by, information that they want to have, related links, contact information. And if a department has their own social media unique to them, like the DPW's Facebook page, what you would see here, that the Facebook here would be their link. The home page would have the town's official links. So, and of course, don't spend any time looking at the words here. They mean nothing. They're just stuff. But she used all pictures we gave her for what she sent us so far.
It's great. Blair better start working on that DPW Instagram page.
Absolutely. That looks great. Very inviting.
Yeah, he's seeing it for the first time tonight, so.
The last thing I was going to say was to Cece's point, I was originally looking at it on my phone as well. And I imagine that once we get to a more finalized view, there will be some versions of the website that will be tailored down to the size of a phone or the size of a tablet. Just right now, it's just the web page view, right?
Absolutely. And that was one of the key things we want to accomplish is that so many people don't use a full monitor, or you're doing something, away from your monitor. It needs to be scalable on any device. Absolutely. So,
and the last thing I just want to call out was in the search bar, do you happen to know if it's a dynamic search or if it's going to mirror the same search functionality as the previous website?
No, that was a key thing for us was predictive search. So we'll have that. And then we're also planning to build out the how do I button on the top right with things that we know people ask a lot. So no matter what way you want to find something, it needs to be less than 4 clicks. No more than 4 clicks, I think.
That's awesome. All right. I saved you an email. Thank you.
All right. Great. Thanks.
And is that beautiful? The beautiful transparent budget plan that'll be under government?
That's one of the things we do next is figuring out the site map and where everything's going to live and how you get to it. It's probably going to take more work than this homepage did.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, Amanda's on the team and she's shaking her head. So we will be having.
It'll be a strenuous project for that piece of it, but I think it's gonna lead us to a better place in the end that will make things easier for citizens to get to. And also that stay informed button is something we'll have that we haven't had before, which is being able to sign up for emails and, for the groups that you're interested in and having the information go to you rather than just the citizen having to come to the website to find it.
Yeah. So lots more functionality, lots more to come, but we at least wanted to get your initial reactions to this so we don't go off course if it wasn't something that you liked. So thank you for that.
It's lovely. And can the how do I know I'm going into the wrong place, so I'm just going to go there anyway, though. Can the how do I button include how do I get involved in my town? Right. So that there's always opportunities and vacancies. How do I get involved?
Yep. I mean, those are things we definitely can build, and and then in the future, the town can change them depending on
exactly
what the analytics tell us people are looking for. And the buttons down here at the bottom, the middle, these round ones can change based on what people are looking for. Like we looked at our analytics last week, and the assessor's office bar is getting the most hits, but that's not currently an option. So the town can change all that stuff up as it learns more about what people use the website for.
And I'll bet that's different based on the time of year.
It could be, yeah, because right now it's abatement time of year.
And then there'll be dog licenses and elections and.
Yep, all that.
It's lovely.
Thank you. I think I see a hand up on the.
Yes. Karen Riley.
Hi.
Hi.
You can check with the company, Blythe, but just from my knowledge of accessibility, having that symbol down on the right-hand corner, if you know anything about screen readers or someone that's visually impaired that can't see anything on the screen and is only using a screen reader, you've forced them to tab, and I counted 21 times before they get to that accessibility symbol. So okay. I don't know if that can be positioned, on either side of the menu at the top, just to make it quicker for someone with accessibility who I watch all day long struggle with how long it takes to get through one page. So
one of the possibilities is to put it up near translate if we have the if we think that people who might want one of those services would look in the same place for them.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that more.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. Otherwise, it looks fabulous.
Excellent. Thank you. So anyway, that's what I thank you for all of that. That's very helpful. Touching on COVID for a minute. As I think I told you last week, our cases are up as of last Thursday, up to just under 1,600, and our 14-day average just under 114. Much higher numbers. There's a new update by Tom Gilbert up on the Board of Health's page today, which has great details. We're tracking similar to the rest of the county and the state. We don't like it, but we're not an outlier right now. What is interesting is if you look at Tom's report, he's got a new graph that shows vaccination rates for teens, and the vaccination rate for the 16 to 19-year-olds in Norfolk is 95%. It drops down to 91% for 12 to 15-year-olds, and then down to 66% for 5 to 11-year-olds. So, as always, we're hoping people think about getting the vaccine and wearing masks and staying safe. But that's where we're at. There was also a story in the Sun Chronicle today that we, along with a number of towns in our area, have gotten a $19,000 grant for more protective equipment for the fire department. So that's always helpful, good news. And hopefully Omicron is in our rearview mirror sometime real soon. Couple other things. As I mentioned when we talked about stormwater, we are going to bring forward a plan for you about how we think we ought to spend the ARPA funds. The final rule just came out from the Treasury last week. It actually relaxes some of the rules and how we can spend the money. So we're going to want to think about that and bring that forward to you. And then lastly, when I shared the last copy of the work plan, I mentioned included there some information about the cost of a quarterly newsletter, which was perhaps was a goal of the board this year, and perhaps use of a PR firm. And wave my window, going dark here. If we're working on the budget, the budgets are due from departments by the end of this month. It would be helpful to know if the board has these as priorities for the next year's budget, so we can either include them or not include them. So if you can get back to me on those, whether you would like to do that, so we're modeling it or not including it, that would be helpful. So I think those were all of my updates. And just the sidewalk meeting, as they say, on January 26th, we'll be scheduling a meeting for the board. So in case there's all of you can come, it's a legal meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Now, I think Scott's still here. I see his little box, but number 10 is to discuss the approach to filling the town administrator opening. And I wasn't available, or I wasn't a select board member the last time we went through this. I know Kevin was, but I know Scott's the guru in all things HR. And he appeared briefly like a specter, and then he disappeared again. I think he was like, well, I'll just leave myself on stop video, which I was doing clandestinely to eat crackers a little earlier because my dog jumped on my desk. But other than that, Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you for a moment.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So we have an opening come July 1st for a town administrator. We have to decide what process we're going to use to do that. So, we do have a qualified individual in Todd who has taken the course. He's got 3 more years experience. So one thing to consider is, do we interview him and consider him for the interview for the position? Do we go out and look for a broad group of candidates, including Todd, and consider that? And then, how do we get those candidates and how do we interview them? So, we could advertise the position. I can advertise it in different places. The issue that I have is that, one, I know the local people, but I don't know all of the candidates, statewide. Secondly, I can't be in a position where I'm out interviewing or talking to candidates in other towns because that's going to, tick them off. It's like I can't be out doing a search. So the question comes, do we hire a consultant, which is probably, I don't know, $6,000 to hire a consultant who can do that work and go out and search and get candidates. Because the other problem when I advertise is I'm going to get the 5, 6, 7 candidates that have applied for every position that's been open lately. And honestly, I won't know that because I haven't advertised. I haven't been in the committee. So that is an issue. So we need to think about whether the select board authorizes me to go out and spend some money to hire a consultant to help us gather a broad group of candidates. And then the other thing that we need to think, or the select board needs to think about, is what is the interview process. So we could have you could select a committee of people of your choice to go out and interview people and give you candidates, or we could present the select board with candidates for which you can choose. That obviously would be done in a public session. Another option would be to elect, or whatever you want to call the word, a member of the select board that will work with me on looking at candidate resumes, whatever, doing initial screenings, then getting back to the group with those candidates that we select. That's, to me, the kind of basic decisions that we need to make. Do we need to consider the internal candidate first? Do we go for a broader thing? Thirdly, do we hire an external consultant? And then do we, what is the interview process?
So I think, thank you very much. I think that today was just about sort of discussing the approach. So I don't know that we necessarily have to come up with a complete firm decision, although if we do, great. My perspective would simply be that I like the idea of Todd and a broader group. I don't know that I'm ever comfortable just picking somebody without going through the process, although I think the world of Todd. So that would be just my opinion, that it should be the actual nationwide search, not just the wink wink nationwide search. As with respect to a consultant or with a group that's appointed, I'm interested to hear what Kevin has to say about the idea of a consultant. You know, I'm always the one who's reluctant to spend money, but I also am mindful of the fact that this may be an appropriate place to spend money. I don't know that we need a separate committee. It may be that it's all of us, or that one of us assists you, Scott, subsequent to perhaps a hybrid of advertising as well as the consultant who would have that knowledge to look and say, oh my gosh, that's the guy who's applied 16 times. Or, you know, and quite frankly, sometimes the person who's applied 16 times, it hasn't been the right fit, but the 17th time it is. My dog is about to bark. I apologize in advance for that. Anyway, so my thinking would be no to a committee, possible to a consultant, yes to the nationwide search. And I'd be happy. It's one of the things that I do. I think I'm actually quite good at it. I'd be happy if somebody else wanted to do it instead. Of course, I'm also quite good at deferring to somebody else, helping in the process. And I'm going to mute myself and quickly let my dog out of the box.
Kevin, do you want to go next?
No, go ahead.
So I guess I also think the world of Todd, but I think it should be a broader search. And I really think the idea of a consultant is interesting, because I think what the consultant can bring to us is also we need to look and establish some criteria of what we're looking for, right? What do we need in the town of Norfolk, and what do we need for the town? What do we need as a select board? What do the employees need in the town? And so I think the consultant could bring in that process of collecting the feedback from folks, like what does the successful candidate look like? And so I think that makes me lean toward the consultant. And I do like the idea of a broad search, though Todd is super interesting if we're in the position where we need an interim person.
And I have to tell you, I 100% agree about putting together some thoughts around what we're looking for, what's the right candidate going to be. So those are great thoughts.
Thank you. Kevin?
So just going back to the last time we went through this process a few years ago, Bernie Lynch was a fantastic resource to help guide through, what's out there in terms of availability, what kinds of things to look for. He was fantastic in guiding the board through some of the complexities associated to skill sets and whatnot. I thought he was well worth the value of what we paid in terms of where we were at that time. I would still be open to the option of going with somebody like him again, just because I think it would be helpful for this board as well. I did like the committee aspect to screening and bringing forward candidates to the board. But, we were in a little bit of a different situation then. So perhaps the committee isn't necessarily the way we go this time, but I do think that they added value to the outside perspectives of some of the key stakeholders in the process and the position moving forward to kind of weigh in and provide some direction and insight. I agree that we should expand the search out as much as we can, like everybody else has said. And as much as I don't like pumping Todd up in a public forum, I think he is a fantastic candidate and strong candidate. I'm sure he'll go very far in the process. But I think that we owe it to the town as a whole to look at all options out there to be able to make a knowledgeable decision.
So Scott, I think that, does that sort of, what would the next step be? Because I think, do we mull? Do we put a motion on for the next time? I'm mindful of what Kevin says. I think that there is I'm sure there's some good marketing speak word that would fit here for the fact that there's alignment. There it is. I knew I'd get it. There's alignment to the extent that I think that we all agree that we should have cast as wide a net as possible. I also think that the consultant is something worthy of really, really strong exploration. And my only concern with respect to the committee is it's my view that it's our role as the select board to figure out who's the right fit for the town moving forward. And I don't necessarily love the idea of handing that off to some other group that may have a different dynamic. Rightly, wrongly, consciously, or subconsciously, that I heard a lot of sort of feedback relative to the last time regarding that, which is why I had sort of suggested, and again, as I said, I'm happy to help Scott. Scott loves having to talk with me. And so for whatever that's worth, that's why his camera's off, but so nobody sees his reactions. But so I don't know what we do as a next step, Scott.
So I hear very much that we're in favor of at least looking at a consultant. So I will investigate that for the board. It sounds like a committee may not be necessary, but I think there might be a sort of interim step. I mean, so it's myself and somebody else, and maybe we pick one or two other people to kind of give us their opinions. That's a possibility. And then we start a search. So let me go out and investigate the consultant piece, and let me get back to the board in the next meeting, or if the next one you're on at CC, the week meeting after, with some suggestions and costs, and we'll go from there.
It could be too, the consultant will have suggestions for us as far as committee or no committee, or having it come straight to the board.
Yep, that's a good point.
Thank you so much, Scott. Onward from there to item number 11.
You need to approve some warrants.
Okay, I'll go. I move that the board approve 4 warrants for the period January 4th, 2022 through January 14th, 2022, as printed on the agenda for this meeting.
Second.
Roll call vote. I almost forgot. All those in favor saying aye. Carolyn Van Tine, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Now, there are no minutes to be approved, and so I guess the only other thing to do is, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I think there are minutes to be approved now.
I heard none, but and I'm seeing Gladys shake her head no, and there may be one set of minutes for approval, but at the time the packet was done, they were not available, and I thought that somebody mentioned earlier there were none. Got it. That's why you read the paragraph before the motion.
That's why.
You know what? Some days I do, some days I don't. It just kind of depends on what I'm feeling. But today I decided that I would, that's the only thing I would read. So in as much as there does not appear to be any minutes to approve, do I have a further motion relative to adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Roll call vote. Carolyn Van Tine, aye.
Anita, what's my name again? Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for all your work. Thank you. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
I'm trying to leave. I can't.